evening, everyone. Welcome to the Magers and Quinn YouTube channel for this special book launch event of Jim Walsh's Fear and Loving in South Minneapolis. Thanks for registering for this event. My name is Annie. I'm the events coordinator at Magers and Quinn Booksellers. We're an independent bookstore in uptown Minneapolis. So very pleased to have this author here to talk about this book, which is about our home, South Minneapolis. And we are also extremely pleased to have a wonderful conversation partner for Jim, Lizz Winstead, also a South Minneapolis native. If you're watching this event, that means you registered, which means that you got a $5 voucher to spend at the Magers and Quinn website. So if you go to www.magersandquinn.com, you can use that for anything on the site, but you could also buy Fear and Loving in South Minneapolis. I do have to say that the delivery of those books have been slightly delayed due to backups at the warehouse, but we should have those books by Friday. So if you have any questions, give us a call, shoot us an email, but do check the website for Jim's books and you will see them there shortly. So thank you very much. Oh,
light your print candle and you'll get the book.
Yes, pray to Prince.
And
Prince and RBG. I feel like let's do it.
And yeah, so we're just gonna, Jim and Liz are gonna have a conversation for you here today. They're gonna talk about the book. They're gonna talk about Minneapolis. They're gonna talk about what's going on this year, things that Jim's been writing about. And I hope that you will have some questions for them. So if you do have questions, please type them in the chat that you see on the video and we can see them here. And at the end of their conversation, we'll switch over to taking questions from you. So that's great. We look forward to seeing what you have to say. And without further ado, I'm just going to give you a quick introduction. If you've stumbled onto this event without knowing who these two wonderful people are, South Minneapolis native Lizz Winstead is a stand-up comic, author, activist, radio host, and co-creator with Madeline Smithberg of The Daily Show, program director, host at Air America Radio. Her memoir, Liz Free or Die, was published in 2012, and as founder of the abortion rights group Lady Parts Justice Abortion Access Front, she's a regular contributor to CNN, MSNBC, and Huffington Post, and she now lives in New York City. And the wonderful Jim Walsh is a writer, journalist, columnist, and songwriter. He's the author of The Replacements, All Over But the Shouting, and with Dennis Pernew, The Replacements, Waxed Up Hair and Painted Shoes. His most recent books are Bar Yarns and Manic Depressive Mixtapes and Gold Experience Following Prince in the 90s, both from University of Minnesota Press. A former music editor at City Pages and pop music columnist at the St. Paul Pioneer Press, he's published in Rolling Stone, Spin, Village Voice, LA Weekly, Melody Maker, Billboard, and The Utne Reader. Please join me in welcoming both of these wonderful people. And remember to ask your questions in the chat at any time, and I will be back to take those questions later. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Annie.
Hi, Jimmy.
Hi, Lizzie. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Say hi in the chat, y'all. Say hi to us in the chat.
Hi, y'all. Hi, Deb Irvin. Hi, Jessica Berg.
Hi,
nice
guys.
to see everybody virtually.
Totally. So, for those of you, I just want to give a little context to this because I'm not just a rando person who's talking to Jim. Jim and I have been friends since, I think, 1983. So we have experienced this town together in a coming of age, as I think so much of our formative comings of age were together and with each other. And so when Jimmy told me that he was writing this book, I don't know how you write a book about Minneapolis without having meat sweats constantly about what you're going to leave out, what you're going to try to remember. There's so many memories. And truth be told, I live here and in Brooklyn. And the Twin Cities and Minneapolis this is a city like no other. Like, you talk to anybody who's not from here, and they will tell you it's the most dope place on earth. Like, it's not just like we made it up in our heads. It's really real for a reason. And that's why I think you wrote this book.
Truth. Very true. Very true. All very true. I'm from this neighborhood. I love this city. I have loved the music and people and stories and, you know, the very fabric of the place. I love it and know it. And have never learned more than I have this year, I think, about this city in terms of history and what it really is and what it's built on. But yeah, Lizzie, we lived in the, you know, basically in Minneapolis in the 80s. And I was reading something recently, and then someone said, I'm really glad I wasn't in Minneapolis in the 80s. And I was like,
Who's glad about that?
I will not say, but I'm like, I'm really happy I was in Minneapolis in the 80s, because dope is the word, because, you know, you would go to see Prince and the Replacements and the Hoosiers and Lizz on the same weekend, you know, live, you know.
Well, and Jimmy, what I loved so much about this community is, like, not only did we hang out and go see music and comedy, we also all worked at the same restaurants together. And this is key. Yeah. So we were all working at like the same 5 restaurants, I feel like. You know, it was like Vagaries and the Loon. And you worked at DB Kaplan?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, with 20 other musicians at the time. I remember.
Yes, same 20. With me.
You know,
I had Pat Morley when he was the original drummer in Soul Asylum. And what we would do is we'd fill in for shifts when people had gigs. And then you were always on the guest list because you were just, your busboy was in a band, or you were a busboy trying to do comedy. And it was a community where, I mean, I did comedy shows at Goofy's Upper Deck, and then musicians would do open up at comedy clubs. And it was,
you learned a lot about improv from you, throwing bills together. Bands like the Replacements that were very spontaneous, you'd throw covers at them and go, hey, dude, you know, Misty Mountain Hop, you know, on the mats, boom, they'd explode. So, and I just wrote about Theater de la June Moon's Ubu for President, which I've been thinking about for the last 4 years. And I was like 20 years old. I don't know even now know how I happened to see that, but that was part of the fabric of this city, you know. Theater de la June Moon, you know, spitting out this trippy, you know, political theater 2 weeks after Ronald Reagan was elected, you know. And we saw all those Billy Bragg shows together in the main room and in the entry, you know, and hung with Braggy. And God, I mean, it sounds like just ancient, crazy old people history or whatever. But when you do something like when you ruminate and like put it down and go like, you know what, this happened. This is a history book at this point, you know, as is this, you know, as is, you know, my Mats and Prince books. And, you know, something was really, you know, triggered in me to go, I got to put this stuff down. There's amazing stories and really, especially with music, ephemeral stories that you feel like I got to get that. I got to hold that close and write about it. And yeah, it was an explosive, creative moment, I think. And the roots, those are its roots, and that has roots. And what we're seeing out in the Minneapolis and the music and comedy and literature and journalism scenes in this town, it's been called a hotbed for a reason, and it's been really fun to witness a lot of it. So
well, and as somebody who came up creatively in this community, as did you, we both did. It was, I think people don't understand the gift they were given, because not only was it, I mean, great music, great comedy, great art, also, and this can't be said enough, because we're going to dive into just like what independent works mean and how independent artists are going to be able to survive in all of this. But people forget, like I was college roommates with Michelle Norris, right? David Carr, you know, Adam Platt, like people, David Brower, you know, folks who came from, I mean, the person who blew up Me Too, you know, a man from Minneapolis, right? And so when or R. Kelly specifically, and so when I look at the naivete almost that I was given here by the nurturing community because we were all together, and then when I decided to move I went to San Francisco first, and it was just like it was different. People were out for themselves. It was all of a sudden it was like, oh, we're not all helping each other, and it's not a thing.
There's something to that whole idea of long winters, and part of the groove of, I pushed tons of people out of snowbanks in the 80s as just part of like nightlife, right? Like 2 a.m, like, oh dude, you're fun, and you got
Jimmy,
you got a bass amp in the back,
when I'll never forget, we had a massive snowstorm in New York, and 2 good friends of mine, Helen Martineau and Gassler, both live here. There was a big snowstorm, and we were pushing cab drivers out of the snow, and they were, guys who were from Pakistan and Afghanistan, and they were like, you're magical witches who know how to get cars out of this heavy white stuff, and we're like,
wait, skills, man,
we're magical witches,
right?
Yeah,
because you know how good that feels to do. You're clomping along in the snow and you push someone anyway. To your point, this is hilarious, Liz. You'll love this. In the book, I write often about my.
What's the name of the book, Jen?
The name of the book is Fear and Loving in South Minneapolis.
And so, in Fear and Loving in South Minneapolis, what's an anecdote you're about to share?
I love going to the rose gardens, as all my readers and brothers and sisters and friends and loved ones know. I go there a couple times a week. I write, I sit, I meditate, I sing, and I love it. It's just this, up until this year, it was a pretty private oasis that, it's been a touchstone for me. And this year, with the pandemic, it's exploded and people are, picnicking and crazy. But Jay Walsh, the wonderful editor and writer, and he was actually my TA at the U in a journalism class. He's walking through and I see him. He's like this weird gnome of the rose gardens that cruises through. I go, oh, there's Jay. There he goes.
A gnome.
Hey, Jay, what's going on? He comes over, and within 5 minutes, he's telling me about this Forbes, because we're having the same discussion about Minneapolis and why it is what it is. And he says, in 1936, Forbes magazine in an article said, if there was going to be a Bolshevik-like socialist revolution in the United States, it would start in Minneapolis. Forbes magazine, 1936. Isn't that a trip?
Wow.
So socialism's go, baby. Let's go. 2020. It only took till 2022, 3, 4.
Well, it is certainly the self-assessing, I think, that humans had to do this year, for the first time. And that's one of the reasons I think this book is so important, is because it takes you on a journey of not only reminding us of what was, but that we can be that again.
Yeah, right on.
And so when you think, Jimmy, about all that you have laid out in this book, which it's vast, what would you say, where would you have somebody start? Would you have them start at the beginning of the book? Now that this book has come out and it's been written, would you say this is maybe where you need to start because of the pandemic?
Well, a really good one is the very first one, which is called Stay Warm. And it's just a piece I wrote about 5 years ago about noticing that rather than saying goodbye or see you later in like February, it was stay warm, stay warm. And I loved it. And I started hearing it and I started mentioning it to people and kind of thinking about it. And I just wrote it. And that's the first piece in the book. after, or no, that is the first piece in the book. And it's a history book in that that writer doesn't exist anymore and those people don't exist anymore. It was such a simple moment. I mean, you can do that and you can write like that and you can notice things and write like that now. And maybe, yeah, now more than ever, but I don't know, man, my antennae are not there anymore.
What do you mean by that?
This year, no, with the chaos and the loss and my antennae are still up for stories and small moments, but it's the frame is different. You know, the actual frame of storytelling is very different right now, I think, because it's all affected by the pandemic. You know, you kind of jump off every story you're telling. It starts with that and ends with that. And the year we've had in 2020 with George Floyd and the awakening and movement, you know, that has engendered, and the loneliness and personal experience we're all having, and disconnect and connect, and, you know, brave new world we're all living in that we're making up, and, you know, as we fly it. You know, so it all has to pertain, I think, you know, and the stories in this collection do, for sure, but I just don't know that. I think we're at bare bones in terms of the, you know, like collective experience right now. You know what I'm talking about. Conversations of how you doing, da 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 da, and the conversation, you know, kind of flattens out after 20 minutes if there's nothing new to report other than, you know, body counts. It's just in a very interesting time to have this book come out at, frankly, because I'm proud of it. I love it. I'm glad it exists. It gave me lots of solace and you know, good feelings during the editing and revisiting of these stories. There's a lot of great people in it, you know. I mean, there's great moments of history. One of the first stories is, you know, I was lucky enough to go interview Ilhan Omar the day she won her first election, and just be there in that room, that moment was, I think back on stuff like that, like bearing witness. You know, journalists talk a lot about that, bearing witness. You know, I was there, and took notes, you know, and was paying attention. So there's a lot of that in the book, and there's, you know, there's weird things and weird ideas, and, you know, I love it. So
What's something
it's coming. It lives.
Jimmy, what is something somebody wouldn't expect that's in that book from you? Like something that you, when you sat down to chronicle this place you love, I think there's an expectation of what's going to come from Jim Walsh, right? I think, and so what surprised you that ended up there that maybe you didn't think when you sat down to do it?
I think, like, let me think. I guess I'm surprised at how much life there's in it. Like, because again, here we are shut down, right? Holy Christ, did we do a lot of stuff. Good Lord, have I talked to a lot of people and hung out and written about it and, like, really seized it. And I think I was, you know, maybe surprised at how it cut through to me, maybe. And that was nice, you know.
Mm-hmm.
To your point about something, Lizzie has a new New Year's Eve special that's on Vimeo right now, and I watched it last night, and it's hilarious and comforting and soul filled and full of loss. And we can talk about that more in a little bit. But one of the things that you said early on was about your humanity. You want to maintain your humanity throughout this, because I think we're doing such a, it's such an intense process of, protecting and getting through the day and, literally keeping your shit together, that you can kind of callous your heart a bit to go, all right, enough empathy, sympathy, sensitive artist, thin skinnery, can't do it. No, I'm going fetal. I'm going into a hole. And so when you said that, I was like, right on. And the more you can do that and kind of rest yourself or your friends and go, hey, how you doing? How's your humanity? Or, can you hear your heart? The better, I think,
I also think too, like for me, being an activist and being somebody who has spent my past 10 years on the ground working with Black and brown folks, marginalized folks, and having my life be full of people with whom this is not new. We have experienced,
no kidding,
right? We have experienced everything you've talked about. We've experienced because of the pandemic. But folks who walk the earth every day, who are living in a system of oppression that has been constructed and we've all benefited from it, to be able to constantly check in with myself about my own sadness. And that's not to say we all don't deserve to be weirded out and freaked out, and that's all true. But I think part of the reason and part of what's helped me get through this is filling myself full of stories of people and experiences that have nothing to do with me, and helping amplify those and understanding where people come from. And then subsequently feeling so much rage about, why was it George Floyd? Why wasn't it Jamar Clark? Why wasn't it Philando Castile? Why wasn't it Sandra Bland? Why wasn't it Breonna Taylor? Why wasn't it Ahmaud Arbery? Why wasn't it Tamir Rice? Why wasn't it, I'll stop. But, why wasn't it? And what will be different?
Right. Yeah. No. Well, I mean, look at you. Look at me. You say in your special that your living room table is stacked with how to be an anti-racist, library. Same here, and I make no, aspersions to how woke I have been prior to 2020. I won't do that. I can't enumerate that because it's it's something to write about maybe, but I remember, to your point, I remember going into the rib joint down the street here, and I was getting some ribs, and it was the Kavanaugh hearings, and they had it blared on CNN. It was just cranked, and they were laughing their asses off at the system, people outraged at Kavanaugh, and it was, two black guys, my age, and we had a big laugh. And for me, and towards the book, I relish small moments like that. I don't blow them up all the time now, but I relish. I think there's a lot in small moments like that. Mm-hmm. And I seek those out. And not like obnoxiously, but when it's genuine and authentic and you have a moment with a stranger that cuts across everything, you go, all right, onward hope, forward motion, humanity's okay. And that happens to me every day. It happens online. It happens, walking around the lake, it happens. People give you hope. They do give you, faith in humanity.
Well, Jimmy, talk a little bit about, like, it feels a lot like if you're a person who relishes this, the beauty in the small things and the art, we're at an independent bookstore. It wouldn't be any place else, right? We come out of a space of independent everything. That's who we are.
Right.
How we're built.
Right.
And now,
by choice,
100%. And so when things happen, like City Pages is closing and that monster ruined it, and Southwest Journal's closing and the Village Voice closed, and small venues. By the way, I have to shout out to my shirt.
So good.
First Avenue.
So good.
I got a First Avenue sweater. You can have one and support First Avenue. But
Save Our Stages, all of that. Yeah.
All of it is disappearing. And what does that mean for you?
Loss, which will get us to our, the next topic of 2020. Loss. How do we deal with that? I'm haunted. I keep saying this. I'm haunted by the stories that City Pages has been down for 4 Wednesdays now. And, I'm in a rhythm. That was 40 years of Wednesdays of, okay, what City Pages going to crack wise about? What interesting story or take am I going to get? What snarky thing? 40 years every Wednesday. Done. Sure, it's Twitter. Sure, it's Facebook and Instagram. But to have an editorial process and a flagship, for that was meaningful. Same with Southwest Journal. Really, really good neighborhood, which is not a disparagement at all, newspaper. It's why I wrote for it for, almost 15 years. I wrote a column and I knew, honest to God, Lizzie, you know what? I remember reading a Columnist when we were at, what was the place we went to before the Brule?
Weiglewood.
We
go to Kiss every summer.
Yes. And we've had vacations together, but we were on this lake in northern Minnesota, Weiglewood. And I was reading this Columnist in the paper, and I went, I think that's the best gig in the world. Writing for a small paper, like talking about it. He was talking about his neighbor or the obituary or whatever. And I'm like, I think that is just to the bone for an experience for a writer, to write to your neighbors and go, hey, you know what I saw at 7-Eleven yesterday? Or hey, isn't this weird? Or wow, doesn't Trump suck? And
but also
and get away with it and use your voice and get paid for it and have an editor you reported to and all of that. Wonderful, and poof, gone. Yeah, it should be.
Yeah,
it should be eulogized. It's
because your neighbors hold you accountable, right? So when you have an opinion in your neighborhood paper, everybody knows you. You're saying something that you truly believe in. The ramifications are much greater on a macro level because it's right there, right? And so I don't know. I feel like you're really bearing soul and witness when you write for your neighborhood paper. You're just
I've said this. I write it in the intro here. I've been the biggest proponent for columnists that I've known. And I kind of feel that winding down now. Like, okay, did it, okay. Because papers go away, it's like it's all over. Everyone's writing columns in some ways. But I grew up like really appreciating a personal voice via the mechanism of a newspaper. I loved that. I loved that, like Al Sickerman. I read him just kind of like in the 80s and just, wow, Al Sickerman, what a weird dude this guy is. He sometimes writes about going to the movies and he loves Lincoln Dell. And then his son killed himself, and he brought us along, for that. And, or didn't he overdosed I think as a freshman at the University of Wisconsin. He took some like LSD and jumped out a window. Memorable, sticks with you. This father's grief, how he wrote about that. My God. So, yeah,
siloed. Yeah, with media, then like, I hate to be old lady wax on, but like, we do live in a time and space now where you can decide where you want to get your media, and have those same kind of people. Where when it was just newspapers and the nightly news, we were all getting the same thing. We all have a shared experience. And,
yeah. Yeah, right. Well, Obama writes that and he talked about that in his interview with Colbert, I think, talking about, and he said it. He said the death of local newspapers. Yeah, I wrote a last column for Southwest Journal. I think it comes out this week, and I just talked about the experience of. It was a few years ago. I had the experience of picking up my neighborhood newspaper off the stoop. It was March. I came in, took it out of the bag, and above the fold was this headline, and it said, the story of the village of Cloudman. And it was the whole story of how at Badabakaska, Lake Calhoun at the time of the writing of this piece, how Cloudman had lived there, right? Way before everybody, right? And the story of how this Cloudman village at Lake Calhoun, its whole history, and how, Cloudman died at the concentration camp that was Fort Snelling in 1862. Above the fold story in the neighborhood newspaper. And I went, and I just wrote, I've never been prouder to have worked at that paper, but more to the point, I've never been luckier to be a reader of that paper. I learned. It set me on a path. It took me to Birch Bark Books more. It made me know this neighborhood. It made me know that lake. It made me know more. And, that's haunting. That goes away starting tomorrow. So,
yeah.
Very trippy. So,
It is.
I want to ask you, and I want to talk to you, because I think, people who are tuned in, 2020 has been a year of loss. And and I haven't been able to see you or give you a big hug to love you up, because this year brought the death of your sister and my friend Mary. Speaking of City Pages, Mary wrote for City Pages, and I'm so sorry. And I guess my question to you would be, with everyone dealing with so much loss on the macro, like we're talking about, huge in numbers, and loss of businesses, people, restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
You lost, your sister and best friend, and what, maybe in terms of solace or kind of what you've learned this year. What do you say? It's showbiz, Lizzie.
I know. I think, honestly, it was interesting because my sister died of ALS, and part of the reason, I was quarantining in Brooklyn, and it was so oppressive because when I was trying to just catch a breath from my apartment, I live alone. I was walking by refrigerated morgues, and so there was no place to go to clear my head that didn't involve the pain and oppression of a city and of people. And finally, I was just like, I got to get out of here, and I'm going to come back to Minnesota. And my sister was in her final stages of dying, and I thought, this is a good time. I can help caregive. And part of what helps you go on is making sure you know what your purpose is while you're here.
Yeah, right on.
And so having set that in motion for myself, and also her saying to me, when I got here in June, and I was just riddled also with just like, I can't believe there's no stage for me to perform. when I do this for a living, I respond to the world, and the places that I perform are closed. And she was like, well, you have to figure out a way. And she said, and I need to be on your journey with you, because I need you to tap into my creativity. I need to know that you value me, even though I'm in this body that's betraying me. I need you to use me as counsel. And I also need to talk about something else that's not my ALS.
Oh, right on.
You know, what we shared so much is our creative selves, the vulnerability of being creative. And so it was like to have somebody say, figure it out for me, and figure it out for yourself. Because when I go, you're going to wake up every day, and I need you to be the person that I would want you to be if I was alive.
Right on.
And so those words and utilizing her and understanding that was really a big driving force in making sure that that I know what I'm doing. And so the advice I give to everybody is take this time to figure out what your purpose is, because you have a purpose right now, and you're going to have a purpose transitioning back into the world. And when you get into the world, it's not like the world was great before. Remember, there was garbage. There was bad politicians. We just elected somebody who is, I went like this and voted. Like, you know, so it's our job to be in the world that we want to see, and to marginalize the people who have set us in this crappy place. So there's stuff that's incumbent upon us, and that means you have to decide it's worth it, you're worth it, your surroundings are worth it, you have a plan, you have a skill, you have a talent, we all do. What is it? Figure it out.
Right.
Like,
I think that's exactly right. I think it's huge.
Yeah.
And great advice, because it's like, what is the bone that you gnaw on? And for me, it's writing and listening and singing and writing and you know, just, and so you just go, okay, because Yoko Ono had a great tweet about 6 months ago. She just said, artists basically don't go crazy, keep your shit together. And I think that's a mission. Just do that. And that extends to everybody, all people of all sorts of creativity, just because it's intense, you know, this solo journey we're all making together. It is very daily in trying, and I would say, and I think you need, I think of them as canvases, and I like to have 3 going at a time if I can, of projects that I'm going to work on that will take me away from you know, the noise and bullshit of this time and this world.
Well, and it's why I did the special, and it was like, I have to say that it was really rewarding, because I did something nuts. I mean, normally I come back to Minnesota and I do this year in review, and I do it every year, and I've done it and everybody knows. And I was hell bent to make sure that I could get the world out. And so I had like an 8-person crew of my friends, and we built the set and hung lights, and I literally put a stage on the shore of Lake Johanna in Arden Hills, and my audience was kayaks, and I talked about coronavirus and the beginning of the elections. And then I realized there was only so much that I felt like I could offer, and that was calling myself in, sort of laying out my responsibilities for all the shit that's happened. And then I interviewed Andrea Jenkins, and that was really amazing because she really framed stuff in perspective. And then I did a second half of it where I shot it around fire pits in 19-degree weather right a week and a half after the election, so that I could round out the year. But it's a way for me to do my show in a totally different way, put myself on notice for finding a place to do something, and also hopefully to help other artists. Like, watch the special. It's $5. You can watch it at Vimeo on demand. Watch it.
Yeah.
Really fun. and especially since I'm not doing shows now. But if you're a performer or somebody who, does that and needs a stage, maybe it will inspire you to figure out what this new world order looks like in how we're gonna respond, because people count on us. People count on us to help them.
It's amazing, Liz, how that works. Because I watched it last night. It has stuck with me today. Like, wow, what the hell? Lizzie kayaks, and it stays with you. So you're right. It does. It's inspiring, and who knows where that goes, and into 2021.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Who knows where it goes? But it's not impossible to figure it out. Like, I'm literally gonna try. I want to talk to some artists, musicians, and comics, and see if people want to invest in tricking out a box truck and taking it around and creating a mobile stage, and people can use it and do things places. Like, how do we do this? Let's figure it out, because I'm into doing it.
It's total DIY. I mean, it's like, and it's, again, it has its roots in all sorts of. I want to sit down with David Roth. David Roth did a great TPT documentary on that hardcore scene of the late 70s, early 80s. And it's like, to me, I think all of these seeds, or all of everything that responses had seeds in that very, very independent. I mean, I remember going over to that Nicollet building when Twin Tone and Husker Du's label was there, and those guys and Bob is like cutting out letters for the new Husker single or whatever, and Chris Osgood is down the hall, doing a take with the Magnolias or what. That will impact you, and you don't even know it as you're living through it. But I love your response. It's very punk rock. It's very seat of the pants. Like, let's go. And I don't know. I mean, that's deeply in you, but also probably nurtured.
Also deeply in you and the hoot. And the one thing I wanted to bring up before we should probably go to questions, but the one thing that I want to bring up in sort of the merging of both of us and what we do was, as we were both very active in the anti-war movement during George Bush, and very active in making sure that John McCain did not win.
Yeah.
So Parkway Theater. So the Republican convention comes to Minneapolis, and I had this scrappy ass comedy troupe in New York doing this satire of the Today Show. And we did it for 3 nights at the Parkway. And then after our fake talk show, Jimmy did a hoot with Tom Morello, Billy Bragg, John Eller. People were sitting around singing. It was
Mike Riley, Brianna Lane, Stuke, Terry Walsh. It was a gas.
For 3 nights. And it was
and meaningful.
This crazy theater show together. You brought the organics of the hoot. And
David Carr wrote about it in the New York Times. God bless you, David Carr.
Yeah, David. I know. David Carr. And so it was just like, those kind of things are incredible. And we did it.
Well, I think what you think, when you think back to that, you go, okay, that bears fruit. That memory bears fruit. I think that's why you bring it up. So, yeah, amazing. Thank you for that. Yeah. So I just want to say, before we go any further, thank you, Lizz Winstead, for doing this. Thank you, Magers and Quinn, for hosting us. Thank you, University of Minnesota Press, for publishing my book, Fear and Loving in South Minneapolis, and during a pandemic, and shipping it out of Chicago. So no small feat, and very grateful, and much appreciated.
Oh my gosh! Somebody's asking Jimmy if.
And Liz, I want to go back to that with Mary and just wrap that up if we can. Like, did you have any other thoughts on?
I mean, it was, if I start talking about it, I'll start sobbing. So
yeah, right on. Yeah.
That's not great. But I would just say that it's, you really do. It's just terrible. It's terrible.
Horrible. I'm sorry. I'm so
No,
sorry.
yeah, it just sucks. It just sucks, but also, it also just gives me this profound passion and motivation to take this time to write more, plan to entertain more. My activism is really strong, doing so much for these clinics and for people who need reproductive care. I've never been busier because people have never been more vulnerable. So
Right
I'm glad that I'm glad that I have an infrastructure in place to be able to try to make people's lives better.
Cool. Very cool. Love you.
Love you.
All right. What are we doing? Questions. Hi, Paul Kaiser. Hi, Neil
Hi,
Carlin.
Hi, Marty Zeller was here.
Hi, Heather Skinner. Thank you, Heather.
Hi, friends.
Dave Schuweiler. Hi, Julie Riley. Billy Bell. Thanks, you guys. Michelle. All right.
Questions. Ask questions.
Yeah, so it looks like we have a question from Deb that is perfect for both of you. Do you guys have any fun memories from the West Bank? Take it away.
The West Bank. Well, the 400 bar. I have memories of the West Bank from 2 weeks ago.
I mean, the Cedar. I mean, my shows at the Cedar and doing KFAI. Like,
right on.
Anytime you can do. I did KFAI this morning. Cool. So I was on with Barb Abney, and so I feel like, or maybe it was yesterday. I don't know. What is time?
We did the Mad Ripple Hootenanny the day after the election at the Cedar. It was brutal. It was like, okay, everybody, Donald Trump's going to be president. Let's hoot.
You know,
it was the 10-year anniversary of the hoot. But we played the 400 a bunch. The 400 bar, man, back in the day, that was great.
400 was really, really great, and also Ethiopian food. Like when I think about the West Bank, you know, I also think about Slim Dunlop playing at Palmer's a lot. A lot of memories of seeing Slim at Palmer's.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
And that patio at Palmer's is also really good. It's a good place people forget about, but they got a big ass outdoor patio.
My great West Bank memory is, I will say, and here it is. It's the first story in the book. Riding my bike through the West Bank, going to interview Ilhan the day she was elected, and just feeling this vibe of kind of like, and you can overstate and overthink those things, but it really felt like, wow, cool. God, here it is. This happened today. So that was electric, I would say. To use that word, electric. Electric.
I like it.
With a capital E, Lizzie.
Jimmy, what do you think in the course of Pinch Me, is this really happening to me as a journalist? And I think I know your answer to this, but what is your Pinch Me, oh my God, is this really happening to me as a journalist moment? Do you have one? I'm sure you have many.
I do. I got a lot because they're not that. I remember things that I wrote about more than like celebrities or something. But I think a couple of interviews, several interviews for sure. To use that word, pinch me. And one would be sitting in John and Yoko's apartment in the Dakota and interviewing Yoko for 2 hours. And, you know, that was very moving. And to walk, especially this time of year, to walk over that, the very place where, you know, John Lennon had been killed, and to talk to her about that, and then to write it as an overnight for the Knight Ridder wire service. I was at the Pioneer Press at the time, so it could hit the Sunday papers. She had a record coming out, and the Beatles had a new retrospective. So, you know, you walk in the door and you take off your shoes, and there's the, you know, like the golden Buddha cat, and then you're sitting with Yoko for 2 hours. So, but sitting with Prince a couple of times and just having fun with him and just loving each other and mutually loving each other and respecting each other. And I was just telling somebody about, like, because, you know, not all writers, you know, put out collections necessarily, but I started thinking about it as I was, you know, covering Prince, I think, or someone around the same time said, you should think about doing a collection sometime. And Prince said to me as we were talking about his Warner Brothers war, and, you know, he was putting slave on his face. And he said, do you own your masters? Do you own your masters? And I was like, something stuck. Like, I wanted to have things that, you know, I could go back to. So, so that's what I did. I'm just going to keep doing it.
I love it because it's the world according to you, and I love that. Why not?
I remember when I was I remember seeing the Gear Daddies, frankly, and going, I really want to write about that band. How do I do that? And that was my first piece in the Minnesota Daily. And not too long before that, I remember loading gear into the back. We had my band had opened for the Suburbs at Duffy's, and it was raining, and it was like March or something, and it had been really fun. It was a good gig, but I remember having this really distinct feeling of, like, I want to capture this moment. Like, I was exhausted, and the rain was falling on me, and I'm putting this amp into the back of my station wagon, and I'm like still an hour and a half away from sleep. And I remember going, I've got to put this down somehow. I got to try. So that's kind of how it all happened.
Randy Broughton and
insanely
partner Renee just brought me cookies and to be nice to me.
So sweet.
I know, it was really sweet.
Very sweet.
Yeah. Speaking of the Gear Daddies, I know, and I just love. You know, the community just extends so far to doormen and sound guys, and you know, it's just,
I miss them all. You know, the cool thing, I think one of the coolest things I've heard during the pandemic is Springsteen said he brought up a time when I think it was when the E Street Band was back together for the first time in 10 years. And he was rehearsing the band, and they were sounding really good, but it wasn't all that. He wasn't he was like, yeah, it's all right. And he had told his manager that. And the next day, they let in 50 people into the rehearsal place where they had been, who had been hanging outside, and it changed everything. They were great, you know, and it was because of those 50 people. And that's what we're missing, like, right now. Like we are all very, you know, we're used to going like, hey, Paul Kaiser, hey, Elaine, Commander, you know, it's really not replicated here. It isn't. We're still wanting. It's a weird thing that way. And he said he misses that. And you don't ever. Why would that ever go away? We can play whenever we want. We can do gigs whenever we want. If we want that, if we're missing that, if we need to connect, we can, and not now. So it's a trip.
Yeah,
it is. Bruce said it well. I mean, and he's been through a lot. And he goes, "That's what I miss." And that we miss that on the micro and the macro. Just like I miss, because I can go like hours without talking to anyone, and then my voice will harmonize suddenly by just, oh, hi. And you go like, wow, I'm alive. It's weird. It's a trip. Yeah. So read more books, people. But, you know, hey, you know what a godsend is? A godsend is you can go to major, you see those aisles? You can go browse those aisles right now. They're open and COVID free, baby.
That's right. There are
It's a
many
godsend.
worlds offered to you. If you're sitting there saying, oh my God, what am I going to do? It's like, oh, did you read every book ever written? I don't think so.
Exactly.
Yes. We
exactly.
also have puzzles. So even if you don't feel like reading another book,
Puzzles.
no, we have them. So here's a good question from Heather. This is a really good question to take us out here. With the shuttering of so many community newspapers today, like we were talking about, where do you suggest people go to find their community news and stories? Like what's gonna
The Minnesota Reformer.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota Reformer, for sure. Spokesman Recorder, for sure. And MinPost. Every day. Support MinPost. I write for MinPost. I interview Liz for MinPost. MinPost rules. And they need your support and money. So.
Yeah. MinPost, MinPost, MinPost. I can't stress it enough. Yeah. All that.
Well, you heard it here.
Thanks to everybody.
It was really, Jimmy, this was really fun.
Thank you.
It's fun to have a conversation with you in front of people.
We'll do it again. We will do it again. Let's do an anniversary of that Hoot Wake Up World.
That would be really fun.
At the Parkway.
That would be really fun.
All right. We'll get Braggy and Morello and Riley and Uncle Bird and Brianna and everybody.
Sounds great.
It's a date.
Yay.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming to the book
Thank
club.
you all. It was really
Books
fun.
are here. Books are here.
Thank you, everyone.
Books are good to read.
Yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Like we said, the Magers and Quinn website is available 24/7, but the store itself is open 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily for limited browsing. There's, only so many people allowed in at once. However, please check our website for our holiday hours. So in the next couple weeks, some of the hours are a little wonky. But yeah, thank you again for supporting the store. Also, I'm about to drop a link to Liz's show on video that you can.
Yeah, watch the show. It's good. It's a good stocking stuffer for people.
There you go. Virtual stocking stuffers. 'Tis the season.
Good night, RBG.
Good night, Marty Zeller. We love you.
Good night, Marty. Good night, Jessica Berg.
Good night.
See you guys. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.